Hey guys, I am Suyog Savalkar and welcome to this channel where we have talks with great people who have great stories because great people have great stories. And today, with us on podcast, we have Omkar Prabhune, who is an open source enthusiast who has accomplished a lot in programming. Also, he has been able to balance college very well with his personal development, and that can be helpful to a lot of people. So, we are going to have a small talk with him. He has shared immense amount of knowledge, so I hope you watch the video and extract all of it, because it's going to help you a lot. So without any further ado, let's get started. So hey guys, here today we have Omkar Prabhune, and yeah, so now that we are here, let's get started. So he will start with giving a short introduction of himself and how we got into coding and tech. As like most when we are 11, 12, we are mostly around JE and in colleges and stuff. So how did you get out of that, get into coding, and now like you're like in like a significant way ahead in that journey?
All right, so it's my turn. So I'm Omkar Prabhune, currently in a junior at VIT in ComSci, and especially interested in all things open source and natural language. As for my coding journey, okay, so this one's a tough one. Surprisingly, I had no background knowledge of coding by the time I got into college. For the entirety of 11th and 12th, I picked German and geography. I did not pick CS. I was not in any elective. So the first time I came into college was the first time I actually encountered coding in this fashion. And it was intimidating. It was very intimidating. Even the people who had one or two experience of coding before me, they were easily able to complete. Like these problems seem easy right now, but at the time it was really difficult for me to wrap my head around those simple problems like Fibonacci series or something. And I used to get stuck on those a lot. So, but I mean, as many things often are, I just had to spend enough time and enough effort on a website. There's a lot of websites like Hacker Earth, Hacker Rank, LeetCode, and so on. And just through wearing them down, I managed to get to a level where I was with them and eventually ahead of them in some of these matters.
Mhm. So, guys, if you haven't, like, if you're in your first year, have not started anything, don't like. There's nothing like there will be someone who has done it before you, but that doesn't mean that is
Hmm.
going to slow you down or it's going to be an kind of obstacle for you. Also, like one sub question that I would like to add in the same one is
Hmm.
what courses like many of them think like it's a good way to go with college, but college takes a lot of time. Like you can see
Hmm.
they take like a whole sem for web development,
Yes,
or
and for a single language too, it's unreasonable.
yeah. Yes, sir. Like
So
if you know
courses.
language, it can be done in months. So where like what are the
Hmm.
resources like Coursera, Udemy, or like what did you prefer?
Personally, for languages, even for simpler ones like Python and all, I would not recommend a single course. Go through problems. Basic syntax you can understand on your own. If not, I mean, at least college can get you up to the basics for C syntax and all. Once you know the syntax for one language, it's very easy to extrapolate. Like printf in C or C out in C++. It's easy to understand the parallels and go on from that. So for
Mhm.
learning languages and all, I would not recommend courses. I would recommend just simply solving problems. You have HackerRank, you have HackerEarth, you have LeetCode, you have all these many uh, platforms. Just you throw a rock, you'll hit 10 of them. And as for actual courses, I would recommend using these courses for something more complex, like frameworks, say Django, TensorFlow, or something like that, or learning abstract, not abstract, but other specific domains, say blockchain, machine learning, and so on. For those, I
Mhm.
would recommend courses. For languages, I would not.
Okay, so like go with documentation or go with college ones.
No
That's
document.
better.
And college will get you up to a level where you understand what you're doing, at least the basics, and the problems will get you ahead of that.
Mhm. Okay, so now that you mentioned a lot of things like TensorFlow and Django,
Hmm.
and they're from different fields, like though they are at last like a part of sub part of programming, but they
Hmm.
are different. And even I face this problem. I find a lot of like when I entered coding and programming, it was overwhelming. Like there was web
Hmm.
development, there was app development, DSA, and everyone gives different opinions. Like go with DSA.
Hmm.
Some say don't do anything to competitive coding for like your whole 4 years and
Huh.
you'll be there. So what is like an ideal solution? Like I know it will not match everyone, but
Hmm.
if someone is really blank about like how should I be going, so
Okay.
what is the best solution?
Even when saying ideal solutions, there's still a lot to unpack.
Okay.
So for someone who only cares about their interview, only wants a placement after that, I'm not saying this is wrong. People have their
Mhm.
goals, and this is a perfectly valid one. For someone who only cares about that, go for DSA.
Mhm.
uh, I mean, I'll go with Hindi for a while.
Yes,
डीएसए रगड़ के रखो पूरे 3 साल,
Mhm.
then interviews में काम आएगा.
Okay.
And as for someone who's just into development and so on, I'd say college is the ideal time for that. College gives you a great time to explore
Mhm.
this stuff. I've personally explored open source, natural language processing, then application development through Java and Android Studio, through Flutter, anything. Web development using Flask, using Django, using JavaScript, using Node, everything. It's a great time to explore and it helps a lot. So I'd say an ideal way is to use your first 2 years, like FI and SY, or as much as you have it right now. Use it to explore, try new technologies.
Mhm.
And after that, you'll have a point that you have no other choice but to go with DSA because interviews and placements and so on. That's an ideal method that I would say would work
Okay.
for most.
And like again a very common question, like
Hmm.
you mentioned DSC is important, so that is both in development as well as in competitive coding. But many people are like they're very confused. No, a lot of there are different communities, so I won't support anyone. But there's one community that supports development. They say development is very
Hmm.
important. That gets you into bigger MNCs, and like your goals are achieved more with development. Others says no, CP is the one because problem solving is important. Doing it faster is important, and they're confused between CP and development. So like most of them start CP. Most of them are clear.
Hmm.
If they're clear, they can go with it. But again, if no one is like, if there's someone like me who is like not clear, so
All
CP
right.
versus
So
development.
I'd assume there's a lot of thought about this, even apart from these two communities that you mentioned. And I'd
Mhm.
say they're both wrong, at
Okay.
least the way.
Okay.
For the first one, like if you're interested in development and all, it
Mhm.
would be useful to startups because there you need to do everything from front end, back end, database management. Everything needs to be done at once to go ahead with the project since everything is time critical. It needs to be pushed out now. People need to see it. People need to use it. In a corporate setting, at least this is from what I've heard. I am not particularly experienced in this, but from what I can tell, it's a repetitive process. You get one particular small section of an application of a particular program, and you have to handle tickets for it. You have to debug it. You have to add features to this small thing. So, in that sense, it really wouldn't matter what development you've done before because all the experience you'd need would be with this particular software. That's it.
Mhm.
So, I'd say development is important for startups. For MNCs and all, there's no two ways about it. You have to do DSA, not through competitive coding, just straight up DSA, like lead code, the problems of lead code and this ones, because that is the only thing that will be asked in the interviews. They will ask
Mhm.
about your projects, they will ask about your accomplishments, but the main thing, the main meat of any interview will always be the DSA questions. You
Okay.
cannot get
DSA.
around this.
Mhm.
As
Got
for
it.
competitive coding, I mean, it's helpful with DSA, but the kind of data structures and algorithms you use in competitive wait, huh, competitive coding are very different from the kind you'll be asked in interviews.
Mhm.
To just give an
Got it.
example, like if there's something like CodeChef and all, even for the first 5 problems, I'd be able to easily do it with some using just arrays and so on, or a vector. But there is no interviewer that will let you go with answering a few questions just based on arrays and all. You need to know more complex data structures, like suffix
Mhm.
trees, basic trees, binary trees, and so on. Not just trees, that's hash maps and everything.
Okay.
The kind of data structures used are different.
Got it. Uh, you mentioned about accomplishments. Like
Hmm.
accomplishments are basically projects
Yep.
in your colleges.
I mean,
So the
not
next
just projects.
question.
It could be internships or any
Okay.
particular competition you won, and anything like that.
Mhm.
So,
So one of them is projects. So
hmm,
next question is about projects. So what is your favorite project? Like till now, what you have done in your college, and which language is your favorite? Again, there is a
uh,
conflict around languages. We'll ask it later.
hmm.
But like starting with
But for
projects, what is your favorite project?
all right, so my favorite project would be one I'm working on right now. It's Junior. It's an open source application that I've
Mhm.
developed to simply catalog novels. It's very simple, and it does only the one thing it's supposed to. It catalogs web novels that you've read. I personally
Mhm.
like it because I'm heavily into that community, and it's the first open source project that I've made, designed, developed myself, and I'm
Mhm.
maintaining an active community for.
Okay.
A close runner-up would be WordLink. It's an NLP project, NLP research project, in which we are trying to establish word relations through word embeddings and word vector spaces. It's a huge thing, one that I can't really describe here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, oh. So guys, if you want to know about Junior, I'll attach the links, and I would like to tell that I was also a contributor there, adding some points in
Hmm.
not a lot significant, but yeah.
You're here in
Uh,
Hacktoberfest.
yeah. So, and languages. So, which is your
Hmm.
favorite language and why?
Okay,
Like
so favorite hands down Python,
Python.
and a close runner up as C++.
C++.
Python because it's very easy to prototype something. It's not the fastest, but you don't need the fastest right now. For
Mm-hmm.
most of the stuff you'll be doing, it your processor is fast enough that you won't even notice whether you do it in
Mm-hmm.
Python or C++. The most time you're taking is actually going up to the run button and pressing it. So Python.
Python. So yeah, Python. And for some reason now I'll come to the very kind of conflict. The question that always causes conflict: why is
Hmm.
Python not allowed? Why always CPP and Java? And again, in that
Hmm.
why C++, like in if they do C++ versus Java, which is the helpful one. Many people say Java is slow and it's they have like a lot of points, and they come like no, Java is better. So overall, these like three small questions, like first one was like why they don't allow Python, then like
Okay.
why only CPP and Java, and then CPP versus like Java.
So the very reason I like Python is why it's often not allowed in college and all. It's very easy to prototype something. One import statement in
Right.
Python would be the equivalent of 1,000 lines in C++.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even something like GUI. So let's say even if I want to make a game in C++, the
Mhm.
amount of libraries that I have to go through just to make a simple, let's say, tic-tac-toe game with GUI, I'd have to check out rendering libraries like SDL, SFML, or OpenGL. With Python, it's a simple Pygame import with around 15, not 15, about 100 lines of code after that to run the actual tic-tac-toe engine. With
Okay.
CPP, it would be much, much larger. Like your actual engine would take 1,000 lines and it would take 2,000 or more just to run the damn thing on this rendering machine. SDL and SFML, these rendering libraries are not easy to get used to.
Mhm. So
Alright,
CPP
so
and
as for
Python.
why whether Java helps you more or C++,
Mhm.
so the main argument for CPP is just that it helps you look into the depth, what your machine is doing in depth better.
Mhm.
And that for Java is that it's used more in a corporate setting. That wherever you go, you'll eventually mostly use Java. So I'd say CPP takes a lead here because as we are moving ahead, lesser and lesser organizations actually care about what language they're using, or even
Right.
to a specific example, they don't really use Java as much anymore. JavaScript is much more popular. Even if I say Python is my favorite, I have to know JavaScript anywhere I go because most stuff takes place on that. If
Mhm.
there's one language
Right.
which you have to, I'd say don't go for C++, don't go for Java, go for JavaScript.
JavaScript. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I came across this website where internships were
Hmm.
listed, and as I told you, if there were twins, so out of that, seven will be more and
Hmm.
related to JavaScript, while the two will be Python, and the rest can be something like PHP or coming
Hmm.
to Ruby on Rails or something.
I,
So,
hmm.
yeah, if you want to go for something.
Earlier it used to be like different languages for different purposes. Like
Mm-hmm.
say you want to make a game, then you'd have to go with C style languages or C sharp to run OpenGL and make a proper game with that. So if you want to go with machine learning, you'd have to use TensorFlow and all with Python as your scripting language. If you want to run web projects, then it would be JavaScript and something like that. Nowadays, it's much different. If you want to create an application, you can use React Native. If you want to create a web app, then JavaScript has always been there for that. Machine learning, TensorFlow.js was released a couple years ago. Game development, Unity accepts JavaScript. You can use JavaScript for everything.
JavaScript.
So
JavaScript rules
exactly,
for some
I
reason.
hate it, but yes, JavaScript rules.
Yeah, same here. Actually, for some reason, I guess no one has understood it completely for some reason. But yeah, JavaScript is just a bit confusing. But yeah, it's also a bit
Hmm.
fun if you like it a lot. So and like a beginner, so
Hmm.
people say go with CPP so that you get the all the
Hmm.
concepts, the memory management concept, and the OO, or what is called as OOP.
And they're
So
not wrong, but
yeah. So then
there's
like
hundreds
many
of
people
perspectives
start
on
with
this.
Python. like including me, even I started with
Hmm.
Python. Earlier, like I started with Java, but I left it because I hated it in 15 days. So
Hmm.
I left it. But then many people go with Python. Even there is classes in Python, but then there's a lot difference, I guess, between the
Hmm.
kind of syntax. And so, which would you recommend? Like which language for OOP, and
Like
which language should we?
absolute beginners.
Absolute beginners, or maybe who are still confused, like they know
Hmm.
Python, so should they go with OOP in Python, or should they be taking some other language up for this thing? Because many
Like
people say CPP and Java is an only relevant thing if you want to do OOP, which I feel is better wrong because other languages also support it.
I'm not sure why OOP is important. Generally, they go with DAC or something. If it's not OOP, then any other recommend. If it's not OOP and not development, then I'd have to say C, not CPP, just plain old
Mm-hmm.
regular C.
Mm-hmm.
For OOP, then Java, yeah, Java would be better than C++, just because while not entirely object oriented, Java still has a few snags.
Mm-hmm.
It is better for learning OP than C++, but afterwards it would be kind of useless. So I'd say go with CPP anyways. It has most of
Okay.
the stuff. You don't have to be perfect and everything, and it will help you later on.
Okay. So guys, like the conclusion of this question would be JavaScript is the king. So before
But
learning
you'll hate
anything,
it.
it would be really
You need it, but you'll hate it.
yeah. So you'll need it, you'll hate it, but it is a good way to go
Hmm.
about, like you will get access to everything. I guess even for desktop application, there is something called as Electron JS,
Electron
which
JS,
is
yeah.
Electron JS, something that
So
helps you
it's
create.
built on Chromium, and
Mhm.
what it does is you build your website, right? So
Okay.
it simply takes that code and with the Chromium JavaScript V8 engine. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you're running an entire browser with just a single website, and that's what Electron does. It's
Okay.
extremely heavy, like a single. This does not count for VS Code. I'll talk about that in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But for most Electron applications, you're running an entire Chromium instance or Chrome instance with just a single website. So it's incredibly heavy for even for something that should be a small desktop application. It's different
Mm-hmm.
for VS Code because they implement their own background engine in C Sharp. So it runs much faster and cannot be likened to the other Chromium projects or other Electron projects.
Yeah, because I guess VS Code uses even like it uses a mix of all languages to make
Hmm.
it better work. Because I went to their repository and it
Hmm.
was like they had a mix of languages, out of which JavaScript was there. But I even saw C plus plus. If I'm not wrong, even I saw C plus plus.
That's mainly for the V8 engine. The V8
That's
engine
what.
is written in C++. The actual scripting for VS Code is done entirely in JavaScript or
JavaScript.
TypeScript. I'm not sure, but it's one of the two.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Coming to the next question, the central theme of everything, that is open source.
Hmm.
Telling you, Omkar is a big open source enthusiast, as well as he has
Very
been into
much.
GSoC.
Hmm.
He's in GSoC, and so the question is like, which organization were you a part of? Tell, like I know it, but like the audience
Hmm.
would like
Okay.
to know it.
I
And
was part of Apertium. It's a
Apache.
natural language
Mhm.
oriented organization. Like from what I've said, these are the two things that are central to everything I do. So
Mhm.
it's about machine translation, but it's different from like the first question you'd get with machine translation is Google Translate क्यों नहीं use कर सकते? So the reason
Mhm.
for that is Apertium works with lesser resource languages, like say African Igbo or Norwegian Nynorsk. So
Mhm.
these are languages that have very little volume of data, and machine learning simply does not work on them. Because of the lesser amount of data that we have, we simply cannot make a model that will work in any capacity. So what Apertium does is through rule-based machine learning, we build not we, but they build. I haven't really worked much on that, but they build machine translation through rules that works with a much lesser volume of data. And rather than offering it to corporate sponsors or anything like that, they mainly work on a research basis with getting government grants and something of that sort.
Okay, apart. So that's great, man.
Hmm.
Coming to like, of course, open source is
Hmm.
very getting popular nowadays.
Very hot right now.
Very recently, yeah, with Hacktoberfest and everything. We'll come to Hacktoberfest, but of course, like it's a bit difficult to get started. Even with me, I've been trying, but they create
Hmm.
issues, they self-assign it, so it's a bit difficult. So for a beginner who is really interested for
Hmm.
going something to open source, what is your opinion? And like we talked yesterday, there are
Hmm.
some things like you can't go to a very famous repo in the initial days
Hmm.
because it's a bit difficult because they have a lot of things developed
Hmm.
already. So what is your opinion getting started and finding the repos? Like,
All right, so
your opinion.
I'll separate it a bit. In getting started, Hacktoberfest is actually a very good way to get familiarized with open source. It's the way I started. And I can tell, even though the contributions I made at the time, they weren't very significant. Most of them were related to documentation and a few minor codes. But it helps you understand what open source is. It's simply a public repository that anyone can contribute to. That counts as open source, that's fine. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the understanding that you get. That's it reduces how intimidating it is eventually. And as for how to find the repositories, now this is a hard one. Because of spam and all, Hacktoberfest simply does not accept small repositories that would get upwards of 100 pull requests accepted a day. So they have a lot of guidelines, and it's heavily encouraged for you to participate in smaller repositories. Now, this is because for larger ones like say Django, TensorFlow, or something like that, the contributions they require or the issues that there are, they might not be so hard. Some of them will be, but most of them will not be. But people still won't contribute as easily because the main thing that is needed is familiarity with the code base. You need to go with the like 10k plus lines of TensorFlow or whatever it is, the section you're planning to modify, to even understand what you need to do in the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Hacktoberfest is not a good way to get people involved with that. The main goal of Hacktoberfest, from what I've understood so far, as a maintainer and as a participant, is to get attention on smaller repositories, and that is the main goal. It is heavily recommended that you start with smaller repositories that are an actual project, or as a beginner, it would be much easier to contribute in documentation and all, because even in a
The
smaller
readings.
one, you need to at least go through the code base once.
Mm-hmm. So there's
So,
like
as for finding one, so I'll send you a link to my blog that I've written recently. It contains a list of helpful links. There are a lot of websites that cater to this exact need, where
mm-hmm.
it'll let you search for the Hacktoberfest tag and search like which language you can work with and how difficult the issues need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a list of links on that blog. I can send you the list of links separately as well. You can put it down
Yeah, I'll attach it in the description. So if you want that, you'll find it in the description in this video. So yeah, so he told like summing up a bit was like find repos that are a bit
there.
not so
Smaller.
famous but
Hmm.
smaller. Yeah, because open source is at last like he explained me yesterday. So I'll like tell you like open source is open source. So it's not something like if even if you go to TensorFlow, it's open source. Even if you come to my profile and something is open and you contribute, that is
Hmm.
also open source. So doesn't matter. But eventually, if you start from small, it will be a bit easier to
Hmm.
scale. I guess like going to bigger repos. Um, and like he told his app Junior is a part of Hacktoberfest. So if you are known to Flutter, go and contribute. There are some issues that you can solve. So yeah,
I'll be
it's a great
creating
app.
new ones. Don't worry. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm also a Flutter enthusiast. I went I couldn't I was like contributing into the wikis, and it's great. Like you can also download it from the Play
Thank
Store. I'll also attach the link down there. So coming to Hacktoberfest,
you. Hmm.
what's your say on it? Like as you said, a lot of things. Like it's not a good way to go into open source, like big ones like
Big
TensorFlow.
ones. Hacktoberfest, as it is, some people have criticism, but I believe it's a very good thing overall.
Okay.
It's the largest in scale open source event, whereas GSoC would take something like 1,000 students or something.
Mhm.
Hacktoberfest involves, I believe it's more than 100,000. And the requirements are very simple. You just need to make 4 pull requests, understand
Mhm.
Git and GitHub at its very basic levels, and you get your swag.
Okay.
As
But what
for
do you think?
about,
Like,
hmm,
what
go
do you
ahead.
think? Like this, there's like I guess 50,000 first participants, but pull request because I don't think they have any kind of like they don't watch for what is called as a good PR. There are a lot of
Obviously.
there are a lot of repos that come up during
Hmm.
this time, like free T-shirts and
Hmm.
Hacktober.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like many people go through it and they do that, but so like how this can benefit to actual people who are actually interested in open source because
Okay.
maybe
Hmm.
one who is interested doesn't really wait for Hacktoberfest, right?
Hmm.
He will not wait for Hacktoberfest. He will be starting. But now, as he's in open source, he would also want to, yeah,
Hmm.
like this is a good way to get something out of
Of
open
course.
source.
Yeah.
So like that becomes difficult. So and someone
Hmm.
comes up, they make. I saw one profile which was created just on that day, okay, on the day
Hmm.
of Hacktoberfest, and they were like, I want to contribute, like they were making this. He wrote in my README that is this document will be written in English, and he pushed it. So something like that. They start doing that. So how should a person who is actually interested in open source
Hmm.
go through this situation where there are a lot of spam and actually take benefit of Hacktoberfest?
Alright. So the main intention of Hacktoberfest is to familiarize beginners with open source, the entire community. I'll I won't give a vague answer for this one. I'll put it in very concrete points. Find smaller repos. Go for documentation first. Try to avoid DSA repos and simple README based ones where free t-shirts and all the ones you mentioned. And try to contribute to actual projects, even if it's a bit tougher to find. If not, there are actual projects and all, you can simply contribute to the documentation. So again, just to
Mm-hmm.
sum up, find smaller ones, contribute to documentation first. That will be easier on you. Try to find code ones after you're done with your first four or after you're a bit familiar. And then find project repos rather than DSA ones. The tools for doing this would be the list of links that I mentioned before. There's a couple websites that operate especially for this, like Code Triage, 24 pull requests, and so on. And as for starting with documentation, I'd say the main intention is to familiarize you with open source. If you find a project that you genuinely want to contribute code to, that's well and great. But it's unlikely because you specialize in a particular language, and it's unlikely that as a beginner you'll find something a good project working in that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much more useful even to maintainers and all to contribute to documentation. To someone that's actually building the project and all, documentation is something incredibly important, but it doesn't seem that way. But to every
Mm-hmm.
project, it is an integral part, and they will appreciate any and all contributions to documentation. Do not think that if it's simply documentation, उतना नहीं लगता नहीं तो ये minor
Yeah.
है. It
Mm-hmm.
might seem that way to you, but to every project, like I can say from the perspective of a maintainer too, documentation is incredibly important, and it's somewhat tedious to the maintainers too. So even if it's simple things like correcting a typo and all, this okay, correcting a typo might not be a good example, but adding a section to a newly developed feature or something like that, people won't directly go for it. So anyone who does will be extremely appreciated.
That's great. And eventually, like even I told you that
Hmm,
I started from even if I start from small ones, you started from small ones.
hmm,
Now that like I told you, I idealize Flutter because it's like one
huh,
of my I use it in my own projects
hmm,
and I really like it. So that day I found one that is they wanted some gradient in their elevated buttons
hmm,
or something. No, I'm not going to get very technical here, but so I went there and told like I would like to work on this issue. When I actually
hmm,
cloned the Flutter repo, very hard to understand. Okay,
hmm,
not hard to understand. I was understanding a lot of things, but there were a lot of errors. I don't know how to solve that errors. Like
hmm,
there are thousands of errors coming up. So no, one who got started, like consider one who is into open
hmm,
source. Maybe he has contributed to his
hmm,
friend's repo, or like in my case, I have contributed to your repo. Okay,
hmm,
so now like Apartium, like you got into Apartium, which is a very
hmm,
big organization under GSoC.
hmm,
Now what if people who have actually gone to repos that are smaller, not a part of
hmm.
GSoC, but now they want to go to some repo that is a part of GSoC, so maybe like Django or TensorFlow.
Okay,
How that transition can happen?
this is a bit of separate one. Like if you're talking about GSoC tips, they're a bit different from what I'll say right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll talk about those afterwards. Just
Mm-hmm.
about contributing to a larger project, say Flutter, Django, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
First, you need to be prepared that you will be not wasting, but you'll be using a lot of time just on understanding the code base.
Okay.
There is a reason, even in GSoC, they allocate 3 weeks just for community bonding, just so you can read the code before you even start any of your actual project.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll need to spend a lot of time on that. It'll be measured in weeks just to understand what the project is. Even for something simple like as you said, the changing the gradient for an elevated button, right? So
Right.
for something like that, you'd have to go through the elevated button, what it's doing in the background, what
Mm-hmm.
APIs it's working on. And if it's even a bit more complex, you might even have to go into the underlying the code that works even below Flutter. For something like changing
Right.
the gradient on an elevated button, from what I've used of Flutter, I'd assume that the code that you would need to do would be in Dart itself. But
Yeah.
what you'd need to be aware of is widget hierarchy, like how there's a widget at top, then container, then no, the first widgets at top, material, container, inkwell, elevated button. So this entire tree you need to be aware of, and where
Mm-hmm.
exactly you would be modifying it. So if you modify the gradient of an elevated button, what you're actually modifying is the gradient on the material class that is its parent's parent. So simply understanding this, going through the code base where you need to actually change this,
Mm-hmm.
that will take up a lot of your time, even if the actual resulting pull request will only be of 5 to 10 lines. So you need to be prepared to invest a lot of time, and that is the only thing that you can do. There are no shortcuts for this. That is
Mm-hmm.
why GSoC and all are popular and needed in the open source community, because it takes significant time to even get started these days. And beginners will simply be intimidated and realize that there really isn't that much incentive. As a person involved in this, I can say honestly that if you are into open source, then apart from mentorship programs like the GSoC, Outreachy, Linux Foundation, there are many of those. And even apart from that, if you're just genuinely into it, you're not really going to get much out of it. You'll get experience, you'll be able to contribute, but you won't be able to get any monetary things outside of these mentorships and so on. That's something you need to.
Yeah, because I heard
Hmm.
like some people go for GSoC because they have some.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if they have it, but I have heard they have some stipends. They have some stipends after you complete the whole period of your like
Hmm.
whatever internship or something you get through GSoC.
$1,500. Yeah, that's why people
That's
do it.
great. Oh. That's actually great. It's actually like motivating to get into open
Hmm.
source. I guess GSoC is more about letting you like telling you that open source is
Hmm.
important. That's how world is working. And no, another question I had is okay, open source. You said there are not
Hmm.
lot of monetary benefits. Now, one person who like maybe doesn't want to contribute to another project,
Hmm.
like you yourself have created one project that is junior, and you have like
Hmm.
significant contributors on that.
Hmm.
So like, how does one person go about that? Like, I have a lot of projects. I try to public like
Okay, trying to
make
open
it
source your
public.
own projects.
Yeah, like they are open sourced,
Hmm.
and but no one comes there, no one can recognize
Of
you.
course, yeah.
That's okay because my profile is not so strong right now. But still, you know how to go about making a project a kind
Making
of
your own
open
open
source
source
project.
project.
Yeah,
Alright, so it's all about marketing.
it's marketing. Okay, it's
Because even to open source a project, you need to know what the community wants, what people
right.
would be willing to contribute to.
Mm-hmm.
If there's DSA repos, like they're simply repositories that contain subdirectories of linear search. And in
Mm-hmm.
that repository, you'd have people contributing linear search.py, linear search.cpp, linear search.c. Those simply operate in Hacktoberfest or similar programs. They
Mm-hmm.
only care about minor contribution that people will do one off and then leave. For a project that you want to properly open source, again, you need to be prepared to invest that much time as a maintainer, because it will take a lot of time to build a community and it will take a lot of effort on your part. You need to love that project enough to start with that. And okay, so as for the actual steps to open source your project, the way I personally did it, it was about reading, and it was about reading web novels in particular. So the very reason I was inspired was on the novel translation subreddit. I saw a post where a person not claimed, but he sent an image of the novels he was reading, simply entered into a notepad type application with the current chapter he was in. This is a problem specific to web novels, because with traditional novels, you can just simply read the whole thing and shelve it. There's good reads and all for that, even to
Right.
store your actual data. This was a problem, and it was a problem I personally experienced, and I felt I could make something for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I also knew that the community would be interested. So these are the basic foundations. There's a problem, you're personally interested in solving it, and you'll be committed to it. And moreover, the community itself would encourage you. So after that, I built this application. I published it on the Play Store. Like, there's a lot of steps I'm skipping over here, but that's development stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it comes back to marketing. I had to make a post on that subreddit that I made this application. Try it out, guys. There's no ads. There's nothing. You can just download it from the Play Store right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's this repository. You can contribute to it too. I got about 2 to 3 contributors out of that. I really, there's not much you can expect.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, my project is very new. I'm making use of Hacktoberfest to attract new people to show that this is a proper open source project. So
Mm-hmm.
the second tip after marketing or after advertising would be make use of events like Hacktoberfest. Put on the Hacktoberfest label, make easy issues, get people involved. And even that eventually boils down to marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Making your own project open source will take effort, and it will not take coding effort. It will take effort in terms of social
Wow.
media and getting people involved. That's it.
Yeah, right. And actually, I guess that project I'm going to use it personally because even I, for some reason, I wasn't a lot interested into books, but recently
Hmm.
I've started reading a lot of books, and not novels, but particular books.
Huh.
And I feel it important because it's valuable because right now in times of reels and shorts, the attention span of a person has gone down. It's
Hmm.
completely unrelated, but important to mention that attention span has gone down. So I started reading books, so I've installed that app. I
Oh,
personally use it.
thanks.
That's a great one. So
Thank
guys,
you.
if you want, I'll also link it down in the description. So go
A
and
lot of
download it.
advertising being done for Junior. I appreciate that.
So Meaning that like the whole like even the code will be attached down. I'll also attach his
Hmm.
Git profile. He does some great work. Go and check it out. Uh,
Feel free to contribute to, accept everyone.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Coming to last question, it's not related to open source or programming,
Hmm.
but right now we are also entitled to something called as college. So we are college students, and a lot of people had a question on it. So even I thought like let's include it
Good.
at the last. So one of the most requested questions is like college and internships.
Hmm.
So we'll include this one. How to balance this college with personal development? So personal development in case like many people want to code, many people want to do something very different, like they want to
Hmm.
dance or something like that. How to find time, like most of them say they don't get time. I actually
Hmm.
even in my case I am not like seeing that case, like I get time, but still people want
Hmm.
more time and they feel like they're not getting time and they are being unproductive. So what's like a simple solution, of what did you do to manage these both things parallelly?
All right. So I'm kind of with you on this one. I
Mhm.
do not agree with that.
Yeah.
With college, you simply do not have time for other pursuits.
Mhm.
It's much more likely that you're simply spending time on social media. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that it's very likely you're spending time on that. And that's the time you're not getting. As for college itself, it's harder. And in an online medium, it's really hard to learn anything.
Mhm.
I'd even go a leg far and say that just finish your college assignments, learn whatever you want on your own. There's Coursera, there's other platforms you can do that over there. And as for balancing this, there's no amount of timetable making advice that I can give that will overcome motivate. Actually, this is wrong, but I do not believe in motivation. Simply decide that you need to do it, you'll find time. This is a weak
Yeah.
answer. I understand that to some extent, but
Yeah, but
there's
I
nothing. Hmm.
no, no, you go ahead. There's nothing.
Because I can't really give concrete advice because your assignments will be different, your projects
Mhm.
will be different, and the time you need to spend on those would be different.
Yeah.
Only thing I can say from personal experience is as soon as the semester starts, shelve personal development for a while, for a couple weeks aside, and finish all your assignments, finish all your presentations, not projects.
Mhm.
Projects take a bit of time. Presentations, home assignments, and so on. You can get those from seniors. You can copy those. I don't care. I'll in fact encourage it to simply care about
Mhm.
projects. Don't really care about anything else. Copy those,
Yeah.
make those in those first few weeks, and keep
Mhm.
it complete. Afterwards, you only have to worry about your projects, and you'll definitely have time for personal interest with that.
Okay, so that
Hmm.
was like colleges, and coming to
Hmm.
you also got
Internships.
recently internships. That is one of the most discussed questions
Hmm.
since first year. Actually, in my even
Hmm.
WhatsApp groups, like people are interested. It's okay because that gives you a very practical way or a
Hmm.
practical insight about how the world is actually going on. So I guess you had told it up back in some
Hmm.
MLSC webinar that you had actually cracked it in second year, which was for third year, I guess. It was in your
Yeah,
third,
it
but you
was
cracked it in
in
second.
a summer vacation, but it was one
You
company
cracked it
that
in
came
this.
early. I just yeah.
Okay.
So
So is it even I'll break it down again into
hmm.
smaller questions. Is it good for people, like good for students to look for internships in the first year? At
Yes.
that point, many may have skills. Many may have skills. I
Hmm.
don't say, but still, most of them, like I said, will be like us. Like they are
Hmm.
through JE and they didn't really have time. They focus a lot on these things. So they may have some other skills. Like I don't only see programming, but should they
Hmm.
look for in the very first sem and very first year or something?
Okay, so I've maintained my stance from the start that college is a great time to explore.
Okay.
This explore does not exclude internships. Like from the very start, I know you're a person. You're incredibly interested in startups and doing something like that.
Yeah.
People might be simply interested from the start to get into corporate, get into a job, become independent, and that's admirable in its own way. You
Right.
don't have to do open source. You don't have to start with coding competitions. You don't
Mhm.
have to be interested in every little development project like we are.
No.
For most people, it is reasonable to go through college for an internship. That is a
Mhm.
valid reason and it's a respectable reason. For people like this, I would recommend go for internships as soon as you can. Any working
Mhm.
experience will be very highly valued eventually.
Okay. And also
So,
one,
hmm,
yeah, yeah, you go for it.
and again, so people who are worrying about how much coding competitions I should do, or what
Mhm.
development stuff I should do to get selected, do a few projects, but apart from that, do not bother. The main thing
True.
that it will come down to every single time will be DSA, DBMS, and core concepts. How much of those you'll actually use in your internship, you'll actually use in your job is irrelevant. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing they care about they care about in interviews, apart, and they care a little bit about projects, but that's only after you've solved the DSA question, after you've answered the DBMS questions, after you've listed that you're aware of CI/CD, like version control systems like Git and all. After that, they look at your projects and ask you about your experience in those.
Yeah, because many of them are actually like your इन्होंने ऐसा project बनाया I
Hmm.
couldn't like my project was simple one and college enforces you to sometimes change projects because it doesn't look interesting or maybe but that's totally fine because as you said projects are considered I guess secondary if you are on college placements on
Hmm.
like on campus one so go for DSA and then DBMS and the third thing you said is
DSA, DBMS, version control system like Git,
okay
and experience matters a lot. Like,
experience right?
um, even if you're pursuing coding competitions throughout, like the entire 3 years, like I'm in third year right now, so the entire 3 years up till this point, it won't matter as an accomplishment that you, unless it's something very major like ICPC, international coding, or something like that. Unless it's at the very top, it really won't matter half or even a quarter as much as DSA or DBMS.
Okay
अल्टीमेटली
that's
वही रगड़ना पड़ता है. बाकी
yeah
के सारा बाकी सारा उसके बाद आता है. ये जीसॉक
mm-hmm.
क्रैक किया तूने, मतलब जीसॉक क्रैक किया बट ये सिंपल एरे इंटरसेक्शन का प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं कर सकता. द इंटरव्यू
Mm-hmm.
विल नॉट यू विल गेट रिजेक्टेड.
So guys focus
There
on
is no
DSA
alternative.
yeah we hate it but you have to do it
You have to. There's no other choice.
yeah so and like one more question like if we do cross internships even like in my case this may be a kind of selfish question
Hmm.
but uh, even I have currently I'm in an internship and I'm seeing for other internships but the thing is they're not related to programming right now they're related to user
It will count.
experiences
It counts as experience. It definitely matters.
okay so there's nothing
Your
for this
voice, your camera freeze. Could you
that's
repeat the
not something
question?
that matters a lot oh yeah sorry uh, I mean like it doesn't really matter just like you don't only go maybe internships in Python because
Hmm.
you want to do something in programming internships are like generalized like you can have work experience in some industry
Okay. So a generalized statement on all of this would be that DSA and DBMS, these core concepts matter above all. As for your accomplishments, projects, achievements, and so on, what counts is the stuff you've learned through it.
mm-hmm.
And after that, not after that, but even before that, I'd say that experience counts as a bonus.
Okay.
That you've already experienced, you've done internships, you're aware of corporate culture, you're experienced with version control systems, you know of Git, you know of Jira, you know about Agile, Jira ticketing in Agile, your experience with those systems. That's what they'll value through these internships and so on. That you have got some
Mm-hmm.
corporate experience.
Okay.
So go for it. Simply having one would put you a massive leg up over your competition.
Coming to one of the other like okay so internships are important and many of them actually want it and as you said it's not wrong
Hmm.
so in that case also what should he be doing ideally in college like if he really wants only internships
Hmm.
he has like one goal maybe I want to crack this MNC okay like generalized
Okay.
example he want to consider in Amazon so he decides
Hmm.
now in the very first year I want to go there now he says now so I want internship
Hmm.
what could be an ideal
So, okay,
kind
first
of
off,
scenario
he
for
has to.
him that he should yeah like what should he do in college like if he is
Hmm.
like completely on internships he his main aim is to do internships in
Hmm.
his 4 years
All right,
or
I'll
many
take
like
Amazon
master
as an example here. I'm personally in Deutsche Bank. I'm not in Amazon, so everything I say won't be completely correct. Anyways,
okay
so for Amazon, first he'll have to
Mhm.
find out if Amazon even comes to his campus. If it does, he's lucky. Well and good. For any company coming to campus, DSA and DBS, everything I said before counts. For off campus, it changes a bit because now your achievements are beginning to matter. Because during resume selection, you cannot show your DSA or DBMS experience then. All you can list is your previous experience in internships, what achievements you have, say GSoC or particular any rank in a major coding competition like ICPC, Google Kickstart, something like that. Any
Mhm.
hackathons you've won. Those are what you'll be displaying on your resume. On campus interviews, these simply do not matter. For off campus interviews, they're what gets you through the door. But DSA will land you the internship or the job.
Okay. So in off campus, more like if you want to go for off campus, like
Hmm.
if there's some, if he knows like his that company is not going to
Hmm.
approach him on campus, so he should focus more on development or some projects or something.
No, then it gets much harder for him because now for the actual interview, he needs to be very familiar with DSA and DBMS and those concepts.
They
But
expect
even
more from him.
and even apart from that, he needs to get selected in the first place. To get selected, he needs to have achievements. And for these achievements, he has to go with development, go with open source, go with coding competition, go for hackathons. And so it gets
Okay.
a lot harder. And that's what the whole thing, explore in college helps with. Like even if
Mm-hmm.
you've done like 4 months on CodeChef or something, you've got up to 4 star. It's a simple one-liner, but it'll take up space on your resume.
Yeah.
You experimented with open source, you actually got into GSoC. It
Mm-hmm.
counts as experience, it counts as an achievement. So this exploring will help him a lot with resume building and getting through the door in the first place.
That's a great, like actually
Hmm.
there's a lot of knowledge that was shared here. Like so guys, if you have missed something extracted, go back and extract it. So okay, like the last one coming to the end
Of course.
will be
Hmm.
like anything you want to tell the students, like consider like there is a student, maybe not he's in college, okay,
Hmm.
he's in college and he's like watching this video, so he
Okay.
like he basically wants some more
Hmm.
guidance, maybe on open source or maybe on whatever
Just
internships
personal
and whatever
development or how
personal development,
can improve it.
basically how to go about everything. So what would you tell him,
Hmm.
like one thing would be like one suggestion, like I would like to have two suggestions from you. One is related to programming, that is the technical
Hmm.
field. One is something that is maybe not related to programming, like something very different that you would like to tell him, because you have experienced it as you're in third year, so it always has been like
Not to
3 years.
that extent that you described, because mainly even my other interests have been in some way involved with programming, say natural
Mhm.
language or open source. Those are the two things I'm going with right now.
Okay, so maybe
So,
something like this, maybe your personal, like you
hmm,
face like, maybe you can say like you did this, so maybe instead of this
hmm,
you can do this, like that he took away my time, and that you understood that that is not going to pay off in long run, or
hmm.
it's not going to pay off anyway. But you got into this rumors or something, so anything
Ah,
like that that
okay,
could help
so
the students better.
one thing for college students:
Mhm.
do not join clubs for the sake of it. No one cares. No one cares what club you're in. Say a
Okay.
popular club like Developer Students Club from Google or IEEE or any popular such club. Nobody, no recruiter will care that you're in the club. They will care what you accomplish through the club. Say you form a team in your club and participate in some hackathon and you win that. That's an accomplishment that counts. If through your club you accomplish some project that is being used in real life, that is an valuable project, that is valuable experience, that counts. Simply being in a club does not do anything. No one cares about that. Do not
Okay.
join 5, 6 clubs. Be an active part of all of them, but accomplish nothing through it. It's like simply attend all club meets, participate in those, but not do anything beyond that. That
And
is
what if
worth nothing.
he,
That is just
what if he
wasting time.
joins? Like I saw some of them since first year they joined and they became like web developers there, or maybe
Hmm.
they became some technical things there, and they are developing the websites and helping
Hmm.
seniors also. In that case, does it matter? In that
Of course
case,
it does. That ties into the previous thing, right? It's
hmm.
something that they accomplished through the club. So
Oh,
if you're a
okay.
part of the club, take advantage of the club.
Mm-hmm.
Don't work for the club, make use of the club.
Mm-hmm.
It's ultimately all for you.
Yeah.
And another thing would be there's a lot of scams. Okay, this is not super big, so I doubt they'll see it, so I can just name them here. Something like
Mm-hmm.
Verzio or
Ah,
those
yeah,
related
yeah,
scams. They will
yeah, yeah.
make you pay for internships. Do not
Mm-hmm.
fall for those. Even if you
Yeah.
get an unpaid internship, it's fine. You are never expected to pay for an internship. There are unpaid internships, there are paid internships. There is no situation where you have to pay for one. That is simply an overhyped course where you're not
Overnight.
really doing anything.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen a lot of them take
Hmm.
this. I'll give you internships in AI, and I was like, not even normal, like not
Hmm.
even medium-sized companies can afford that. How will like these guys give it? And even like from this, I came to know like Virzo and Viz Gurukul and
Hmm.
something like that. that is a scam. So don't pay for it. Over free internships. Like, what
Hmm.
is your say? Free internships? Like, should they go for it, or should they learn something and then go for a paid one? Because I guess
Unpaid
companies will be
internships, you
knowing
mean?
about it, right? Yeah, like not an internship, but uh, I guess companies would be coming to know about it. Like, this guy actually paid for an internship for this, because I guess their experience actually helps them know that, or something like that.
And they won't know it per se, but it's simply not worth it. There are
Okay.
enough internships around that through contacting people through using websites, you can get one unpaid. There
Mhm.
is no such internship valuable enough that you should pay for work you're doing.
Yeah,
There's
correct.
nothing that's
That's
worth that much.
that's right. So, and you're seeing like on free internships, like where they
Unpaid
make you work,
ones.
but unpaid ones. Yeah, they
Hmm.
actually, that's good for experience, but again,
Yeah.
you have
If you
been
get a
working
paid one,
kind of.
then leave the unpaid ones aside. If you don't, then unpaid ones are good.
Okay, so it's like good for experience
Hmm.
and overall development. So guys, don't pay for an internship and don't get into something called as whereas. So they're very famous in college. I also saw the messages coming,
Hmm.
because like I don't think very first year they have just got out of
Exactly.
that,
Hmm.
like that
First year it will definitely
boundaries
fall
or
for it. I've seen them fall for it, and it's sad because it's
yeah,
simply not worth
because
it.
and that looks a bit, you know
Hmm.
it looks,
And
because
it will be it
they
will
have
be
just got out.
immediately revealed. Like say through Versio, you get a Microsoft internship, where basically Versio would simply tell you some work and give you certificate from Microsoft. The first thing, if you put it as an experience, the recruiter after your DSA question, they will ask you, "What did you do in this internship?" And the second you tell them, "Ki एक third party Versio से किया Versio," they might not name it. It might be some other one. कि इनमें से क्या I joined a WhatsApp group and they gave me tasks. It's gone. The money you paid, the time you not even invested, the time you wasted, everything's
Yeah,
gone.
and maybe the interview also ends there.
Huh. It won't
Maybe
end there, but
maybe
might
like
be
they
honest.
don't. Yeah, so don't pay for it, guys. It's a scam.
Hmm.
So overall, it was a great session. Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks for your time, and thanks
but
for guiding the
just give
students.
me a minute. Like throughout all
Sure.
this, I might have been a bit vague or a bit nebulous with my answers. Big word
Mm-hmm.
nebulous, but fine. So
No, no.
I hate personally hate these kinds of it depends answers. So I'll just give my final take on what you should do, a concrete final take
Okay. Yeah,
that
that's good.
everything I've answered so far and everything ties down to, boils down to.
Mm-hmm.
That college is a great time for you to explore and try out new technologies, gain achievements, and play around with as much stuff as you can. Early on in college, don't worry too much about DSC. You'll be learning about it officially soon enough that you don't need to do it outside of that. Try to explore hackathons and coding competitions, see what you like, but there's no need to stick with it. Clubs are a
Mm-hmm.
plus if you are personally interested in a particular one, but don't bother just for the name or brand. It's useless. Yeah, as you get more confident with your developing skills or coding skills, look into open source projects or events if you're into that, and find what you're passionate about. By this time, around second year, late second year, or mid around that time, you should know which field you like and what more you can do. Way better
Mm-hmm.
than any talk we've had here or any advice any stranger can give you. And as interviews come closer, then start giving more attention to core DSA, DBMS concepts and problems. Throughout all this, you'll also have to keep going on with college work. So naturally, you'll get busier with that all soon enough. But don't treat it as a chore. There's a lot to explore, and you'll definitely find something you like. And I sincerely hope that this talk, everything we've said so far, at least gives you a few directions
Mm-hmm.
on what you
Yeah,
can pursue
because
next.
he's experienced, he knows actually how things are being going, not maybe ideal for everyone, but he give a lot of situations, so
Hmm.
that will match you in some way, or maybe you're doing the wrong thing till now and you understand, this is going to be right way. So
Hmm.
you can watch it, and of course, like as he said, instead of listening to strangers, it's better to go and explore.
Hmm.
Like at last, even we are
Hmm.
just speaking, and it's better to go and explore, and you should be knowing it very sooner. But the important thing is again explore,
Hmm.
and a lot of
Find what you
things
like.
as we talk. Yeah. So actually, it's actually good. It doesn't like I actually liked it. You didn't tell something like it depends, and you do this, and it
Wait.
depends, and that goes like it confuses a student more. Like
Hmm.
you gave us like, and then you say it depends. Okay, it
ना
depends. So
इतना
that
आधा घंटा बोला फिर भी कुछ अलग ही बोल रहे हैं.
how why? So it's like it gets more confusing for them. So he gave like a clear
Hmm.
solution to everyone. It's generalized. It doesn't
Hmm.
come down to programming. We both are interested in programming, so that's what the whole
Hmm.
kind of thing went about. But even if you like something like dance, so
Of
don't
course.
like go doing it again, explore. Maybe you start liking something like singing, or
Hmm.
maybe you start something like, and coming to, even he talked about clubs. So it's a great way, but if you accomplish
Clubs
that
by
something,
themselves are not worth anything.
matlab, if you accomplish something, then that's
Hmm.
okay. Like if you develop a website for them or something. But if you are attending the workshops and all, then that doesn't, like, I guess, count, because I don't think
Hmm.
the certificates also matter a lot. So that's why actually I am also part of only MLSC,
Hmm.
and he's the lead there, and actually they're doing a lot of good, but they give time to explore and they work on projects. So that is the best thing actually about this club. They don't tell you to attend workshops and conduct those workshops, and that's actually good about, like, overall thing I like about this. So thank you Omkar for being here and for your valuable time. I'll give your, maybe
Hmm.
your Instagram ID, or maybe uh,
Just I'll send you
your
the
Instagram
certificate.
ID.
It's fine.
Yeah, so that if someone is confused, he can just
Of course.
reach out to you. Of course, if you want to know about his development, as I told, I'll link Junior as well as his Git profile down. Oh, sorry, GitHub profile down. So yeah. So see you next time, guys. Bye.